Welcome to week number 5 of BurnerCast. Once again, I am Joey Strutz, joined by Brad Hosmer and, of course, McKenna Seacrest. We're filming on a Tuesday, kind of out of order, just because of the way things shook out with planning. Our last episode we filmed was actually Dom Bareford. You probably just watched Paul Petron's last week, though. McKenna was gone for Dom's episode, so this is her first one back. She was out flying in Winthrop, where she took a first place finish.
Yeah! Woo! That girl, McKenna! Yeah.
If you don't know, Winthrop is not competitive at all, but McKenna had a great time. Looked like some absolutely gorgeous flying out there.
It was beautiful.
Yeah, and I think that's something that everybody's really looking forward to right now. Here in Michigan, it's 65 today. We're all getting ready to fly. It's looking like it's going to be a really nice and fun season. So tonight we have a really special guest for you. She is a second-generation pilot from Wayland, Michigan, and recently even built her own balloon. Please welcome to BurnerCast, Jennie Kerber.
Woo!
Hello, hello.
Hi.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure. We're really glad we were able to get you on. So we're going to start off. We really always start off with, how you got your start in ballooning. It's obvious you have roots in ballooning. I mean, your dad, Rick, is the pilot for the Michigan Cat balloon, was also a pilot beforehand. Can you tell us, did that alone inspire you to be a pilot, or was it other things as well?
Well, it's a little interesting. So I did grow up with my dad being a pilot. I took my first ride at the age of 5, but I was really scared and I was kind of nervous. In growing up, I was just always crew. I realized that at the age of 11, I wanted to become a pilot. I was in the driveway with my dad. I think he was just doing yard work. And I said, Dad, when I turn 14, can you train me? Because I think I want to be a pilot. And I counted down the years and days. And I think that's my dad definitely was my biggest inspiration for wanting to become a pilot and carrying on my family's roots, because I am a 3rd-generation pilot now. So yeah, I think my dad was definitely my biggest inspiration.
So correction on the intro then, 3rd-generation pilot. I actually did not know that.
Yeah,
I didn't know that either. That's really cool.
Yeah, my dad had 2 uncles and an aunt who were pilots. So yeah, I think my dad didn't know he wanted to be a pilot. At the age of 16, he started training. And he kind of got out of it, got his big boy toys, bought a bow, and kind of got out of it for a little bit. But yeah, he got back into it when I was, I think, 2 years old. So
we kind of talked about you just recently getting your license and getting into ballooning. So kind of talk about that. Was there ever a time where you kind of thought, hey, for those of you that don't know about Jennie Schick, she has a pilot boyfriend as well. You may have seen it on Facebook recently. And her dad is as well a pilot. So was there ever a time where you kind of doubted that, hey, this may not happen, I think I could be better as crew? What was that like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I did my first training flight when I was 14 years old. It's kind of funny because during my first training flight, I had thought, oh, I don't want to be a pilot. This is way harder than I thought. So for a while there, I kind of went back and forth. And before I had met Cameron, I thought to myself, oh, after college, I'm going to get my certificate. And then I thought, I kept coming up with excuses on why I wasn't going to do it. Because I just really enjoyed being my dad's crew chief. And when I met Cameron, he definitely pushed me because it's always been my dream, just like all of us. So he pushed me, and during a time with being with Cameron in the beginning, I was even coming up with excuses of, no, I really like crewing for you, and I think my skills are better used on the ground. But I definitely realized that I want to be competing and I want to fly and have my dreams come true, because I think everyone deserves that. Just because I was crew before doesn't mean I can't be a pilot, right? So yeah, there was definitely a time where I doubted it. And yeah, I'm very proud of myself for getting past that point.
Well, I think that's part of the problem people, think, especially somebody like you, it's like, okay, you always have a balloon available. You got all these balloons in your family now. It's like that's almost part of the hard part is getting flying time. It's like, you know, you were always traveling with Cameron doing flights, your dad was always busy and most of your, young life was him flying passengers for Michigan Cat or various events. So I can imagine, flight time was not as prevalent as it would have been if say he was just had a 90 just out flying at, local events, stuff like that. So there is some challenges, believe it or not, to getting your license as a second or third generation pilot, I do think.
Yeah, it wasn't the easiest because, like you said, with my dad being corporate, I didn't have those opportunities all the time because there was always something with cat or balloon events I didn't get to fly because he was flying customers or passengers. So it was a struggle. I didn't get the hours, honestly. I had only 9 hours going up into meeting Cameron, and I had been training from the age of 14. So from 14 to 20, I only had 9 hours. That's not a lot. And so I definitely got all my hours with Cameron as my instructor.
That's so interesting to me because I would think that with a ballooning family, you would get more opportunities, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it was definitely hard. And I think that's why I definitely was coming up with excuses of, oh, after college, I'll get it. Or, oh, after I get a job, I'll get it. And finally,
Yeah,
finally, I was able to push through that.
yeah. Well, it was so good meeting you at balloon camp last year, and we got to fly together. And it's been really cool to watch you just grow as a pilot and so what was it like to go through the rest of your balloon training with Cameron and get it done really fast and get your check ride done?
It was interesting to say the least. I was a little bit frustrated in the beginning because Cameron had said, if you get your book work done and if you get your written done, then we can just push through the hours. And I am not someone that enjoys studying. Just, I think every other pilot can say that. That was definitely the hardest part. But I downloaded the Balloon Training Academy in, I think it was November of 2019. And I kind of started it and was like, oh, okay, I can do this, but I'll just put it to the side because it won't take me long. And I would open it and think, I don't really want to do this. This is boring. And finally, in April, Cameron was like, let's do this. I know you want to do this. Just, I'll help you. Kim and Adam will help you. We can all get this done. And so Cameron was threatening me. He said, I'm not going to do flights with you until you get your written done. And the weather was beautiful in May last year. And so finally I pushed through. I got my studying done. I think it was 2 weeks it took me. Got my written done. And then literally, I think it was 2 weeks that I did my 10 hours of training, did my solo.
Wow.
It all happened so fast. But Cameron definitely
That is
pushed
so
me. So I couldn't have done it without him. I definitely credit him for me being a pilot right now, because without him, I would still be making those excuses.
And I think that's something that's so cool about the Balloon Training Academy is, especially during COVID, you've seen so many young pilots emerge that, you just do not get that in the sport of ballooning anymore, as unfortunate as it is. We saw more new pilots and especially youth pilots than I think ever this year alone. And I'm really, really interested to see, where else that can be taken.
Absolutely. And I have to credit Kim and Adam. I couldn't have done my studying without them and their encouragement and them pushing me as well. Without the Balloon Training Academy, I would not have passed my written. I know it. So yeah, that was definitely a blessing.
Well, and the cool thing about, your training is we almost had the more similar path, right? I did a lot more of my training in 19 than 20. We kind of finished off around the same time, and I did retake my written because it expired. So we were kind of, talking about stuff together, which kind of helped, I think, each other at the time because we are quite similar in age. But so to kind of talk about that, how do you think COVID kind of affected? It seemed almost COVID may have helped you in a way to get your pilot's license, as random as it may sound.
Yeah, so in the beginning of COVID, I was actually in Albuquerque, New Mexico, living with Cameron's family. And we had tried to do some training there, but kind of ballooning was shut down for a while because everyone was a little uneasy on what ballooning was and flying. So we kind of pushed that aside. So in that sense, COVID made flying and training a little bit difficult for me. But once we got back to Michigan, we were able to push through it because the ballooning community in Michigan is just so supportive, and we're all a big family. So I definitely was able to knock it out then. So I would say COVID was a big blessing for me with not having as many balloon events and not having as many paid rides because I was able to get those hours in.
Yeah, that's awesome. So on top of that, so we kind of talked about your dad and how supportive he is to your ballooning career. If you could put a scale of 1 to 10 when you got your license, when you did all your solos, and how proud of your dad was you during these times? What do you think?
So I have a couple funny stories about that. My dad is a very supportive father and he loves me to death. I've always had a special bond with my dad, and he gets emotional when it comes to my sister and myself, our accomplishments. So I remember during my first solo, I was inflating and everything's good, did my practice check ride, how you would do your briefings and everything. And I'm kind of looking at my basket as soon as I get stood up, and I'm seeing how many hands I have on to kind of instruct a little bit. And I look at my dad, and my dad has tears rolling down his eyes. And I said, to him,
Aw.
you can't do that. You can't do that to me right now. I'm about to go solo for the first time, and I get tears in my eyes. And then on my check ride, after Adam had said that I passed and congratulations, my dad didn't say a word. There was a circle. There was, I think, like 10 people there supporting me and crewing for me that day. My dad walked in the middle of the circle and gave me a hug, and just, I think it was a solid minute of us just crying because he was so proud. And I think this is a dream for him too, having his daughter be a pilot. So I think on a scale of 1 to 10, I would say 1,000.
Aw.
Yeah, and even when you were flying, not Battle Creek, I mean, he was there the whole time. I'm sure he wishes he was kind of flying, but hey, he was there in the ground, and like again, I thought he was gonna cry as well. And
I don't think he was flying. I don't think he wishes he was flying. He tells me to this day that crewing for me in that event and Brookfield, he just had a ball crewing for me. And I think it's a different time for him to see me flying and not him, and the roles reverse a little bit. But yeah, he's definitely very proud.
So moving on from the topic of getting your license, I know something that was a huge portion of that was you becoming involved with the junior balloonist camps. So I know we all three know this story, but I think the audience would love to know how did your involvement with balloon camp come about?
It was a little bit crazy. I think I have to kind of go back to meeting Cameron. In April of 2019, I had gotten a friend request from someone I didn't know. And I think just like the rest of us, ballooning is such a small world and we all know each other in one sense or the other. So I had said to my dad, Dad, I got this friend request from Cameron Wall. Do you know who it is? And he said, I don't know. I'm only friends with him because my friends are friends with him. So I accepted the friend request, and we're all young pilots. Why not be friends with them? And he sent me a message a couple days later and just kind of talking and stuff. And finally, I think it was May. It was after Frankenmuth, Memorial Day weekend. He had sent me a message and said, hey, I'm part of this balloon camp. I'm sure you've heard of them, but we are in need of another female counselor. What do you think about possibly entertaining the idea? And I kind of thought, yeah, I mean, that's something I'm interested in, but it's in Reno, Nevada. that seems a little impossible. And how are my parents going to allow me to do this? So I went in to my dad's office at Michigan Cat and brought him lunch. And I said, "Hey, Dad, good news and bad news. I'm going to be moving home for the summer, but I also want to do this and go meet a boy I've never met in Iowa and drive all the way to Reno." And he was kind of like, "Oh, I don't know about that. Let me think about it." And so, in true dad fashion, he called his friends that knew Cameron and did some research and finally decided that he would be a safe person to travel across the United States with. um, and so that's how I got to being a counselor at my first balloon camp in 2019. Yeah, so that's how I got involved in that. I'm also doing it this year. I'm kind of have a higher role in helping Carolyn get camp going. And I think I'm going to be kind of a go-to person for the counselors and campers.
So that was kind of like the 90-day fiance story of ballooning, correct? Is that what you consider it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I did fly from Grand Rapids to Cedar Rapids to meet him and then stayed at Kim and Adam's house and never had met them before. And then drove all the way to Reno from Cedar Rapids by ourselves together. So yeah, we got to know each other pretty well.
Yeah, it's kind of like me and Cameron as well. It's like first time I met him, I was at McGee's cornhole tournament. Never met the guy before. And then you come along a couple weeks later, so it all worked out.
Yep.
So balloon camp was just a blast this last year. It was so much fun. And I wish I could go next year. But for those who don't know, could you explain just a little bit about what balloon camp is about and what goes on there?
Yeah, to me, I think that balloon camp is about meeting new friends, even being staff. I got to meet some of my best friends there. But also it's about the younger generation of balloonists, not even balloonists, but young kids that just are interested in teaching them about everything to do with ballooning, whether it comes down to teaching them about flying and them getting the opportunity to fly in a balloon for the first time, or teaching them about weather and stuff like that. So it's anything to do with ballooning and educational stuff for them to learn. It's definitely, I never went as a camper's age, but I definitely regret it because I think that I would have learned way more being at balloon camp than just crewing. So it provides an opportunity for people to learn about ballooning that would never have had the chance. And I think
Cool.
all three of you went to camp, right? As a camper?
Yeah, I did it in 2017. It was, okay, well, funny story. I would have gone when it was in Michigan. The year my parents were like, you know what? Yeah, go for it. The first year it was out of Michigan. So, of course, it didn't work out until I was 17, which is literally the maximum age of campers. And I will straight up go out and say I would not have a license without the youth camps. I mean, the knowledge you get from that camp is just unbelievable and super extensive, and it was really, really, really helpful with passing my written especially. But it helped, so I really knew more what to expect going into things as well. But yeah, I could straight up say I would not have my license without that camp. I owe a lot to Jeff and Carolyn for really putting together a good curriculum.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I went way back in the day, and I was too young to almost grasp what was happening, and it was still almost too new per se, like how the camps were supposed to work. And back actually when I went to camp, believe it or not, I'm that old, guys, we weren't even allowed to fly. We could only tether, okay?
Wow.
we flew one night, and I kid you not, the guy who ran the camp, still very cool. I almost had a panic attack because he was so scared that the waiver that you guys all signed, because of course they have to, liability issues with balloons, all this stuff. he was so worried that they didn't include flying. I thought he was going to have a panic attack that night when we went out and flew. And
Wow.
we never flew again in the Michigan camp. So that's just how much the camps have really evolved into. Basically, all you guys do is go fly and, you know, practice flying and this and that with all the young campers. So it's interesting to see from that perspective.
Cool. So I've been to all 4 of the Reno camps and then one camp in Albuquerque where I took my check ride during the camp. And my first camp, I was 13. But I feel like it's been so cool to like go to those camps and meet people that are my age that love balloons as much as I do. And I always learn so much at every camp, and it's just a very cool experience.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing for me is I was still a student pilot at camp, being a counselor. And I remember McKenna, you were like, "Oh, Jen, do you want to fly with me?" And I was so nervous because
Oh,
I was like, "Oh my gosh, McKenna, like, you want me to do this?" And oh my gosh, you want me to do what? And but even you, I learned so much from you. And
aw,
I had told Cameron at camp, I said, by the next camp, I'm going to have my private. And it was because all of the support from you and everyone else that I was able to make that happen.
yeah,
I would agree with you that even being older, camp still teaches me stuff.
agreed.
Let's see. At my camps, I met a about probably 10-year-old Ben Humphreys, who actually ended up about 10 years later building my balloon. And then I met probably a 16-year-old and 17-year-old Adam and Kim, maybe a little older than that. So it's kind of interesting to see those people quite evolve in the sport. So
That's pretty cool. So for you, Jenny, what specifically made you want to continue going to balloon camp and helping at the camps?
For me, I look at how much I was able to grow. And if I can kind of help someone else with that, a new camper or someone else that just wants to know about ballooning, that's I think what inspires me the most is to grow our generation of balloonists, because there's not many of us and we are the next generation of balloonists. So it's important for me to be that person that someone can go to and, hey, I need help, can you help me with this? Or hey, I need a little bit of encouragement. So for me, that's my biggest inspiration, is to just grow the sport of ballooning and pass on my knowledge and my passion for it. So that's why I want to continue to do it this year.
Cool. That's awesome.
So one of the big things we want to talk about in this podcast is how you built your own balloon. So can you kind of talk about how this whole even came about? How did you decide to go from, instead of getting one built by a manufacturer, to building by yourself? Let's get into that for a while now.
Yeah, so it was a little bit interesting. I knew I needed a balloon because I didn't want to fly Cameron's because he was always hogging it. And I knew I didn't want to fly my dad's balloon. It still scares me to fly my dad's balloon, honestly. And so I kind of started looking. I knew I needed a balloon, and I was looking online, the Facebook marketplace and stuff, and there was nothing. And I know I want to compete. So I wanted a racer, and I had only done my training in a racer. So why not just continue with that? So looking at it and being so young, I kind of thought, well, the budget's a little bit small. And how am I going to get a balloon for this price that's not going to die in a year? So I started thinking that the manufacturer was kind of out of the picture. And with no other balloons being really on the market, I had to come up with plan C pretty much. And so I had knew that Ben built Cameron's balloon and your balloon. And having a conversation with Cameron, I thought, I can do this. It can't be that hard, right? So the first thing I did is order my fabric. And from that moment, I just ran with it. So the reason I did it is because of the cost, and I knew it was going to be more affordable, but I also wanted to challenge myself. There has been a lot of people that have been encouraging, but at the same time discouraging. So in a way, I wanted to just say I can do this and I am capable of doing this.
See, and that's the I mean, I feel it too as a home built flyer. It's kind of like, it's so, I don't know, thought down on, but there's just, and I've had these conversations with Ben, and I think I've had them with you. It's like, what makes somebody that manufactures so much more qualified than a guy that actually builds the balloon himself? Like Ben has, hundreds of hours now. He's done all sorts of stuff in balloon. He knows every nuance of a balloon. Like, what makes him so much less qualified than somebody at a factory that's never probably seen a balloon other than the bundles of fabric? So that's the frustrating part about home built, because I mean, realistically, our balloons are just fine. They'll do us good for whatever, and then if we want to build a new one, we'll go build a new one. It's cheap. It's gets the job done. But like we said, we talked about that a little bit. But and I know you've had some frustrations with your family about it as well. So I mean, we get where we're coming from. So what kind of, back to the whole balloon thing? How did it the design come about? How did you choose the colors? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I had gone back and forth on the size. My dad did not want me to fly a 56. He was very diligent in making sure that I get a 60 or a 70. And I went back and forth. The size was the biggest thing. And, I wanted to do what my dad wanted me to do, but I knew that I had trained in a 56 and I can know what that balloon is going to do and how it's going to react. So I know I feel the most comfortable in a 56. It's the perfect size for me. So that was that decision. And the design, I knew I wanted to kind of have a play on my dad's balloon, just with growing up with him. And if anyone has seen my dad's balloons, the old cat, which now Steve Mitchell owns, and the new cat balloon, it kind of plays a similar design. So I kind of wanted to keep that in the family and carry it on, but also have my own spin on it. So I contacted Joey and was like, hey, I have this idea. I don't know if it's possible, but what can we do? So I don't know. We went, how many designs did we go over, Joey?
We went through easily 100 plus before.
Yeah, it was crazy.
So many different color schemes, so many different patterns.
Yeah, and the hardest part was the company that I ordered the fabric from, they only had certain colors of what I could order. So I had to they weren't colorful. That's why I would have loved to have purple and pink and blues and bright blues and stuff like that, but that wasn't possible. So I had to play on, probably there was 5 different colors that I had to choose from. So the reason I picked royal blue, red, and black was because those were the colors that went the best together. So that's how I went about that. That was the hardest part, I think, was designing it and coming up with the colors that meshed well together. So I have Joy to thank for that.
Yeah, and back to the size thing, it's like, yeah, you should do what you're comfortable in, and realistically, there's not much difference between a 56 and a 60, especially when you compete, and most times you're going to go solo. You're not going to take other people. Mm-hmm. If you ever need a 70, I'm sure I can find a guy who has a 70 that doesn't need a 70, because I'm finding my 70 is almost too big for me. So I've told Struts to trade me. He won't trade me, though. I don't know what the deal is.
I am very much happy with my new balloon. I plan on flying that one.
I'm out here like my 90 is too small.
I still to this day have no idea how you can fly a 90, McKenna. If I can't get a 70 down, and I know you fly a lot more passengers than I do, I just don't know how you can fly a 90 sometimes. Like, it's just like mind-boggling. There's some people that fly 90s. Even Cameron in his 120.
90 is small to me. Like, I'm used to flying bigger balloons.
No, I mean, I don't know if I can get a 90 down solo. That's the thing. It's like, I can't get a 70 down solo. Like, I don't want to go up. I want like something I can go down in, like, me, not just, I don't want to add weight.
It definitely does not want to come down when I solo.
See, there you go.
All right, we're gonna get back on topic here, guys. Not nice tangent there, but we do got to get back on topic here. So I think something we witnessed was, or I witnessed at least, because I had asked, I was like, hey, you got any name ideas for the thing yet? And I know you had mentioned, well, yeah, I really want to let the name just come to me. Can you talk about how that name came to you?
Yeah, so growing up, my dad had always named his balloons. His first balloon was the Jennie Rose, which is my name. His second balloon, which was the first cat balloon, was the Megan Christine. And I don't know. I never had really a lot of experience with naming balloons until Cameron. Um, Cameron names his balloons, and he has always preached to me that balloons name themselves. You can't pick a name for it. So I kind of went along with that of I'm just going to wait. I'm just going to wait until I start building it or start flying it, and maybe something will come to me. And I named it Challenge Accepted. And the reason I did that was because I had a lot of people tell me, oh, you can't do this, or oh, no, that's not possible. You got to do something else. There were so many people that, just, yes, they were encouraging, and I thank them for that. But also, they pushed me to want to do better, to want to become this pilot that I am. And so I named it Challenge Accepted because being a female in ballooning, McKenna, you can say, attest to this, it is a little bit difficult. And being so young and all of the people telling me all of those things, I kind of thought, game on. So I
I'm
took,
the same way.
I took the challenge head on, and that's when all of the sewing and all of the challenges that came with building my balloon, there were times where I thought, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm quitting. This is too hard. And I took the challenge head on, and that was definitely the name. It fit and it sticks perfectly. Challenge accepted. I can do this kind of thing.
I love that.
I really like how you guys have that like theory where the name will just come to you, and I think that's something that definitely happened with us three as well. So when I got my balloon, I did a poll on Facebook, but a little known fact is one of the names on that poll I kind of already had my heart set on, but I wanted to see like what people thought. So the story goes, I was outside having a drink with my dad, and he was talking about what are you going to name the thing, like, and he at this point was kind of against me getting a new balloon, and I was like, wait. So like, I can get it and store it here because I'm living at home, and he's like, yeah, go for it. So we were thinking about it, and he had mentioned, what about Blue Moon? You got the huge blue dot right in the middle, and I'm like, you know what? That's honestly not a horrible idea. I kind of like that.
Yeah.
So I had kind of decided, but I put the Facebook poll out anyways, and Blue Moon won the poll, and I'm like, all right, that's it. And I know Brad and McKenna both have similar stories with how the name kind of just came to them. Brad especially.
Oh yeah, good old Nader. So when I bought the balloons, I bought it from Ben out of Columbia, Missouri. They had some massive flood tornado the week that I bought the balloon. Then I think Adam actually picked it up. It was like Memorial Day weekend, took it to Iowa. Actually, Cameron was still living with them at the time. And they had like 3 or 4 tornadoes in the span of a week. So actually, Cameron kind of named my balloon as well and said, oh, let's call it Nader. So short for Tornader. So, that's how we got Nader.
Cool.
What happened? What about Endless Joy? What happened there, McKenna?
Here, I'll show a picture. So this is my balloon. It's a 90 Aerostar, and I actually named it when I was 15. And I don't have that interesting of a story. I never knew what I wanted to name my balloon, but it's kind of self-explanatory. Like, balloon brings, my goal is for it to bring everyone around me, like, make everyone happy, and ballooning brings me joy in life, so it kind of made sense. And then my middle name is also Joy, so Endless Joy.
That's such a beautiful story. I'm glad you shared that.
So moving on here, I know I dealt with this a little because I had helped out my instructor when he was building his home built that I did most of my training in. So what was that process like? Getting everything certified with the FAA.
Goodness, the process alone was huge. Just starting out with getting my balloon alone was hard. So I guess the process of getting it certified with the FAA, I had to, luckily, I had Ben Humphreys as my mentor for kind of showing me the ropes a little bit. And so he got me in contact with the guy that he had worked with to certify his balloons. So I called him, his name is Neil, called Neil and emailed him. And he was like, okay, we need to get this paperwork done. And so I pretty much needed to create an N number, sign all the paperwork. And it was really hard because we had wanted it to get my balloon done in that time slot that we had. And so at that point, you're at the mercy of the FAA of waiting for them to come out with your N number. And it was every single morning waking up, refreshing the page. Please, 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 my N number, please be there and please have it be registered. But it wasn't. So that took a lot longer than we had wanted. But I went down a second time after my balloon was finished. And I think it was Springfield, Cameron and I had to go to, Missouri. And so we drove down there to meet him from Columbia, and he looked at my balloon, made sure everything was legit, looked at my N number, my data plate, everything like that. And I had to sign some paperwork. And the way he explained it was he was there to certify it, to basically say, yes, this balloon exists, and yes, it is done correctly. So that was that process. It took a lot longer than I had wanted it to, but you're dealing with the FAA and you're on their time at that point. So, but they were awesome to work with and very helpful.
This is a shameless plug, but anybody looking to get in the home building kind of thing, contact Ben. The dude has so much knowledge about building his own balloons. He built his first one, like 2019, somewhere around there.
2016, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, he was young when he built his first balloon. I imagine he's going to build much others. He's really inspired you. So if anybody has any questions, reach out to him. If anybody needs help getting a hold of him, I'm sure we can get a hold of him for you. So back to the building process. What did you enjoy most about building your balloon? I'm sure there was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears along the way.
A lot of tears, I would say that. So the process for me was I ordered my fabric and then had that shipped to Michigan. And then Ben kind of told me everything else I needed to order. So it was email after email of order this, order this, order this, and finally got it all down to Missouri. The worst part for me was cutting. That took, I wrote it down actually. I think we had a 14-hour day of cutting, just doing that alone. And that was the worst part for me. And then from there, we started putting panels into gores and then putting the gores together. And I would say that was the easiest part. I think I honestly cannot sew. I am the worst sewing person that you'll ever meet in your life. But if I can sew a balloon, you definitely can. So that was definitely the easiest part. But the learning, because you have to do a different seam or a different fold than just sewing on a regular quilt or something like that. So I remember that I was very frustrated with Cameron that day. Cameron and I were working together on trying to learn how to sew. And he did it first, and he thought that he could try to teach me how to do it, but he wasn't quite sure on how to do it yet. So it ended up with me in tears. And bless Ben, he came downstairs and was like, Jen, this is how you do it. And we learned together. And from that moment on, it was pretty easy sailing. I also don't like the detailing work. The detailing work was very difficult. I believe I broke 20 needles in a span of like 10 hours.
Wow.
So, because you're sewing through so many layers and no mix, and it just was a lot. So I almost kicked the sewing machine out the window that day. But yeah, it definitely came with its challenges, but I believe I had honestly no idea how a balloon was built before going into it. And so I was able to learn a lot about the building process and what it takes to make a hot air balloon.
I think it's really cool that we were in a call the other day and you were saying that building balloons is like your passion, something you love doing. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I think the thing that makes me really happy about it and why I'm glad I did it was, everyone has their thing. McKenna, you are a commercial pilot and you like flying passengers, and same for Cameron. That's his dream. That's what he wants to do, is expand our ride business, and who knows what's going to be happening with that in the future. But I don't really enjoy that. I don't enjoy taking passengers. My passion is competing flying wise, but I kind of found my little niche in ballooning, and it's not something many people say that they can do. So that's definitely that makes me really happy, knowing that I have a future in that, and I'm going to definitely continue doing that in the future.
Yeah, that's really cool. So what are your future building plans for balloons?
So right now I'm working on a hopper. So that's a little interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, so there's that. And then Cameron is definitely talking about a balloon in the future. So I plan on building that. So, and that won't be my last balloon. And I definitely want to continue to build, and hopefully my goal is to get into manufacturing. So we'll see where that leads me.
Awesome.
That's
very cool.
We got to get the missile too. We really have to get the missile too.
Oh, it's in the near future. I can promise you that.
I really want to build a hopper in the future. Like, that's my next goal.
Yeah,
So
I haven't really completely started, so I'll definitely let you know how it goes.
You'll have to give me tips.
Yeah.
And then I think one of our last main questions for you is, what is on your ballooning bucket list? Like, what do you want to do someday in ballooning?
So I actually, because I knew you guys were going to ask me this, and I've been talking about it with Cameron for a week now. And Cameron and I actually have a goal to together fly all the 50 states. So that's, I think, definitely on my bucket list. And I have been, since I've been little, thinking of places I wanted to fly. And I didn't go to Balloon Fiesta until my junior year of high school, and I was able to fly there. So that one's crossed off my list now. But I definitely want to fly and be pilot in command over the Sandia Mountains. That's definitely one of my biggest goals. And I think every pilot has that dream.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, I think it'd be really cool to fly in Turkey and New Zealand. Those are just beautiful places that every pilot wants to fly, I feel like. And also, I've never gotten the chance to travel outside of the United States. And Cameron always talks about how beautiful Poland and Italy and all of those places. So definitely, I don't know, we'll see. I just want to take places as they come and take opportunities, because that's the only way I feel like that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's definitely, I think, my ballooning bucket list.
That's awesome.
So we know you've watched most of our episodes, so you know what's coming here. But for our guests, it is that time again. It is time for our fan and host questions. We're going to start off with the 4 host questions that we ask every guest that comes on the show. We're always refining this list, so if you ever have questions that you'd like to see pilots in the future or guests in the future answer, just send them over to us over Facebook Messenger, Instagram, DM, however you feel you can contact us. So, we told the story about this question with Dom Bearford 2 weeks ago now. Bless Blake Aldridge's soul. That kid's hilarious. That kid's great. This question comes from him. It's one we ask every week. Do you have a favorite Marvel movie?
I have never seen any of them. So sadly, Blake, I'm so sorry. I have to say, I don't have a favorite. Maybe we'll have to watch those.
You
movies
and Cameron?
Yeah, that's the thing. We have a rained out balloon event where we have a date night just for you two, and you guys watch a Marvel movie. We can pick it for
We
you.
are making you guys watch them in order. Like, it is going to happen now. Like,
Okay.
one of these weekends.
Okay, it's a deal. I'm planning on that.
So we know we had talked about this, especially with Cameron, with his mom's banana bread, which hard to beat. But do you have a favorite pre-flight meal?
So I don't know. I am not a big breakfast person. So for me, I don't eat before morning flights just because I just don't like breakfast. So I'd rather wait until 11 o'clock after refueling and eat lunch. But I would say for night flights, I definitely need to eat something because my nerves get to me. So I usually grab a granola bar or something small because I just do get super nervous. So I don't want that to get the best of me. But I don't really eat anything pre-flight. I drink a lot of water. So yeah, not much.
Next question. So you see this at NBA, MLB, NASCAR, where athletes get their own walkout song. Do you have a walk-up song that if given the opportunity that you would use?
I would use Unstoppable by Sia. That would definitely be my walk-up song.
It's a good one.
Our last one that we ask like every guest, if you could have a meal with any ballooning legend, past or present, who would it be?
So this has been one I've been thinking about, and I never got the chance to meet my Uncle Les, and that is who started ballooning in my family. So if I could have lunch with anyone, I would say my Uncle Les because I would want to pick his brain about why he started ballooning and the back in the day stories of my dad said he got his certificate in 1969. So I would just want to hear stories about that and why did he do it and thank him because without him I wouldn't be a pilot today. There's no way. So that's definitely who I would choose to have lunch with.
And all right, so next we're going into our fan questions. Our first one we got, what is your biggest advice for anybody looking to get a pilot's license at a young age?
I would say my biggest advice is to not let people get to you. I definitely had a lot of people tell me what they think, and it's not about them, it's about you. So if you want to do it, contact anyone. There's so many pilots that want to help the younger generation, and so many of us that want to make this happen for anyone else. So I would say just get your team behind you and get people who support you and just push forward with it. And if I can do it, you can do it. That's what I say to everyone. So that's my biggest advice, is just to push forward and keep going with it. If it's something that you love, to just take that challenge on.
Our next question comes from your boss herself, Kimberly McGee. So what was the most played song during the building process of Challenge Accepted?
Goodness. So being with Ben and Cameron was always, it was very entertaining. They played a lot of pop songs, and I think my favorite one genre, there wasn't one song that was played in general, but we played a lot of country music because Ben and I are in a country, but Cameron is not. So we overruled him with that. So I would say we had a playlist of country songs that just played over and over. And so that was definitely a fun memory for me, is listening to country music with Ben Humphreys.
See, and I think that's one of like the funniest moments. Is I've definitely experienced that with those two as well. I rode into Indianola with both of them each one morning. So I rode in with Ben one morning, it's of course country. And then the next morning I go in with Cameron and he's blasting Travis Scott rolling onto the launch field. So, it's really interesting to hear like who all everybody in ballooning really listens to.
Yeah, I just picture that whole experience just being Blanco Brown, the get up, just the whole time just blaring that. I don't know why, I just do.
I honestly think that song was played a lot. That's definitely got to be it, thinking about it now.
So what's the biggest challenge of having mostly pilots as your crew? Between your dad and Cameron, and then you also had a few student pilots crewing for you quite a bit over the summer as well.
It was definitely a challenge, especially having my dad and Cameron crewing for me in Brookfield. I felt like I didn't really have an opportunity to breathe and think a little bit because they're like, oh, you got to do this, you got to do this. And I didn't have time to think for myself. But once, I accept what they're saying because they know. So that was very helpful. I just, the saying goes, pilots make the worst crew. So you kind of think, why are you doing that? That's not how it's supposed to be done. So I think that was the hardest part was pilots just aren't good crew members. So I don't know. It's fun though having pilots as crew because it's just everyone has their own opinions and everyone does it differently. So it kind of challenges you in a way too.
And to think I had 4 pilots crewing for me my first solo and my check ride. Oh boy.
I feel very bad for you.
for those who don't know, with ballooning, having pilots as your crew is like having 4 backseat drivers in the car with you. It is the exact same thing. I know I'm guilty of it, and I know pretty much any other pilot that is crewed for another at some point will openly tell you the same thing.
Yeah. Yep. And I think that's one thing that Cameron, I think it's a blessing in disguise for him is that when I was just crewing, I didn't really know a lot. And now being a pilot, I think he enjoys it way more because I can tell him and I know what's going on and can almost think ahead of him a little bit. So it can be a blessing in disguise for sure.
Yeah. Our next one, whose check ride were you more nervous for? Crewing for Brad's or your own? I think you can guess who this one came from.
Oh gosh, I don't know. It was hard for me on Brad's check ride because you're not supposed to say anything on someone else's check ride. And just doing my check ride, I had a lot of tips that I couldn't tell him. I think I was more nervous for mine just because I was the one that my future was on the line with that one. If Brad didn't pass it, that's on him. But yeah, both kind of had their challenges, I would say.
So we have one more fan question from you. This one I got messaged personally. Comes from your dad, actually. So do you have a favorite flight that you've done with your dad?
So I have 3. And the first one that comes to mind is Balloon Fiesta. I was fortunate enough to be able to fly with him with Chris Smart. And I'll never forget this. My dad, it's always been a childhood dream of his growing up, and he grew up in ballooning with his aunt and uncle, and he had always wanted to. And growing up and ballooning myself, I'd always wanted to, and we had never gotten the chance to go when I was younger. So we took off, and I look, and my dad is just, he has tears. And I instantly started crying because this was a dream come true for both of us. And I got to share that moment with him. So that was really special. My second favorite is the reason that I actually wanted to compete was, I think it was 2016 Battle Creek. It was a morning flight, and I flew with my dad, and we had to go up past a mile. So that was my first time past a mile. We were up at 6,000 feet, and it started out on the ground. I think it was like 65 degrees, and we took off. We're up at 6,000 feet, and it's 32 degrees. And I look at my dad. He's in jeans and a sweatshirt, and his teeth are chattering, and his knees are shaking. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, is something wrong? Do I need to take over? Like, I've only had a couple of training flights. I can probably get this thing to the ground. I don't know. And I said, Dad, are you okay? And he said, yeah, I'm just freezing. It's so cold. It's the middle of July and it's 32 degrees. But yeah, we killed it that morning. And that was my I want to compete moment. And my third one is my first training flight. I was so nervous, and my dad had said, okay, Jen, I want you to level me off at 500 feet. And okay, easy enough. Anyone can do this, right? So I hit the burner, and soon enough, we're at 1,000 feet. And I did not level off at 500 feet. So at that moment, I was like, I don't want to be a pilot. This is really hard, and I can't do this. But now look at me now. So those were my 3 most memorable flights with my dad.
All right. Well, unfortunately, that is all the time we have this week. Thank you again, Jennie, so much for joining us. Had a great time chatting with you. You know, next week on the show, we've got one of the class clowns of ballooning. Steve Sitko himself will be joining us on BurnerCast. Again, thanks for joining us, Jennie, and we will see you next week on BurnerCast.